So today's show is lined up. It's really interesting. I was thinking about old Winnie, right? And it feels a little bit like, when Wills and Kate got married, Prince William and Princess Catherine, now whatever her proper name is, got married, and everyone was talking about Pippa's bum. It was the dress that Kate's sister wore, and everyone was talking about her bum. And that was like,
I don't know where this analogy's going, but I'm here
well,
for it.
well, where my analogy is going is it's like, because I was thinking it's like on the wedding day, if the congregation, the crowd, the attendees are all talking about the bridesmaid, that's what it feels like. Because Christopher Luxon has had his big day and everyone's talking about Winston. And I just wonder how this is sitting with them. Because even tonight, like I go through the news and I another idea I had for a podcast, we were going to call something like front page or something like that. Because it's like what's on the front page of the news is what we'll talk about, similar to what we do now. And what's on the front page of the news now is Winston talking about the media and what Luxon thinks about Winston talking about the media. And so tonight's show, we're going to have a look at what several of the politicians are saying about this. And then we're going to have a look at the National's 100-day plan as well. And we're also, of course, going to hear from Ash and the director of Ash about the smoke-free 2025 going to the wayside. So yeah, it's an interesting time. And in the past, if a prime minister lost control of one of his ministers, that would be seen to be a bad thing. In the past, if a prime minister lost control of one of his ministers, the opposition, and for the last 6 years it's been National, would have a massive crack about it. And of course, now that the former opposition is in Parliament, a minister who they can't control seems to be, well, he's entitled to his own opinion and his own way of addressing people. And I just wonder, I mean, I'm not someone, you more than me, about scorched earth, Chewie, and everything blowing up. But I do wonder if this doesn't settle down, how they can continue on with Winston being the highest profile politician in the country. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it's a goddamn disaster. I'm still torn on how the media is best to deal with this. Like, because it's like he's banging a pot in the kitchen and just going, look at me, I'm going to say something outrageous because the people that voted for me are fucking weirdos. And then the media's gone on the attack a little bit and go, yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't pick on one of us, and we're going to rally because you're just accusing us of being bought and paid for, which we don't like.
Yeah.
And then it just amplifies it. And I've seen a couple of comments this afternoon as like, remember when Trump started really rounding off against the media and the media went after him? And that was in the run up to the election. And it just meant that he got so much fucking airtime of his nonsense. He sucks the air out of the room. And so I keep coming back to this thing of like, yes, it's bait. It's there to get the media rolled up to go after him. Maybe the best to do the other thing. Walk away. What is his antics drawing focus from? Will we miss something because the media is defending themselves against his nonsense?
Yeah, well, it's interesting as well, and we should probably have saved this chat to when we actually do the bits about Winston, but we're not professional enough to think about that. We're just off the top of the dome. But I wonder, it feels like Winston going after the media has now created talking points for the other parties that they have to follow, because now Luxon and Willis are certainly saying, and on some level Seymour as well, is saying, well, there are lots of people in New Zealand who didn't like the public, journalism fund, PIJF, public interest journalism fund. There are lots of people who don't like it. There are lots of people who think there was something wrong there. And the line they come out with was, because I didn't like it. This, I think Luxon says, I didn't like it because even if it's just a perceived conflict of interest, that's bad. Now that's real interesting because from here on in, we're going to be able to say to Mr. Luxon, hey, this is a perceived conflict of interest, 7 houses you own fiddling with the market, It's a perceived conflict of interest. But what they're now doing is they're saying, you know, I think actually Seymour goes, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with the funding. I don't think that makes them biased, but there's a perception. And they're starting this, and the reason they're doing it is because of the narrative Winston has set. The smallest party of the three, you know, the one of the three leaders, yes, but he set this narrative, and they're having to go down that path now. And of course, that follows on to the obvious question. If it's about the perception that there's bias in the media, where has that perception come from? So there's all these right-wing politicians who are now talking about the perception that there's bias in the media. And that has come from all these right-wing politicians talking about bias in the media, and then right-wing think tanks, and then right-wing lobby groups, and then, you know, the groundswells, the voices for fuckwits, so they've sowed this narrative. And so now they're able to say, well, lots of people are asking questions. It's exactly like Fox News, who use this theory where they report an issue in the morning and they put an angle on it. So their morning show will put an opinion out there, and then their afternoon show will say some outlets are reporting and it's them.
Yeah.
But they're able to do that. And it's also exactly like, why do American conservatives think that the election was stolen and CNN is a left-wing mouthpiece and nothing else? Why do they think that? And it's because of Trump, who then went down through the Republicans, who then got amplified by right-wing think tanks and media outlets. So it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It's the Republican model that they have sowed the seed of bias, and now these right-wing politicians, are using the seed to go, you know, some people are saying there's bias. I don't think there is, but if there's even an appearance of bias, that's not a good thing. And they're the group that sowed the seed, and now they're harvesting that seed that they sowed. So it's just fascinating to watch from the outside looking in.
I think you're exactly right. And remember what I've mentioned a couple of times here is how much the National Party and their think tanks have been influenced by the Tory party in the UK. And that is the same thing. It's a corrupted media spitting out something like when I first saw people going on about the Public Interest Journalism Fund, right? It was literally counterspin media. It was Telegram groups. It was just some of the people that you just go, oh, these fucking idiots will just come up with a conspiracy out of anyone. And now you've got our deputy prime minister saying it. And at that point, like, we're talking about the erosion of, it sounds so hyperbolic, but it's the erosion of democracy, because part of what our public media is supposed to do and our journalists are supposed to do is pierce through this bullshit, the opacity of government, and point out what's going on. And at the moment, they're not able to do that because they're too busy defending themselves against a deputy prime minister who is making threats against the public broadcaster. It is fucking cooked. And our prime minister doesn't even have the stones to go, yeah, fuck, I'll have a word. There's nothing. Oh, he can make the comments that he wants. Yeah, he can. Yeah, he's not in your party, but you should have a relationship with the man enough to say, can you just tone this brainworms down a bit, granddad? Or you go back in a home. It's mental. And yes, we have seen this play out overseas.
Yeah.
And it's great to be here in New Zealand and think, wow, that couldn't possibly happen here.
Yeah, that's over
but
there.
It has. You point out there's so many lobby groups, and it's that whole thing. Like you'll remember from broadcasting, the way to get people to remember something is to repeat it 3 times.
Repetition.
If you've got Groundswell saying it, the Free Speech Union saying it, and Taxpayers Union saying it, and then your Deputy Prime Minister says it, well, it must be true. And then it doesn't matter. You can throw as much truth, proof, reason at it. It doesn't matter. It's in people's brains, and it'll stay there because that's what they want. That's what they want to believe.